With Hermitcraft Season 10 just around the corner, and the overwhelming response to me finishing off Mumbo's build, I decided it was time to start the next one right away. So because of my wonderful ability to procrastinate and getting distracted by something shiny, it took me about 3 days to get started right away. But today we're adding to Grians Season 9 Megabase. As always, if you like this video, let me know by leaving one, and subscribing if you find yourself coming back to my channel regularly, since you're coming back anyway. Now let's get started building onto the megabase of one of the most prolific hermits. This build is so different to last time, where I was just finishing Mumbo's base while injecting my own personality into it as well. Grian's base, however, is different, since there's no unfinished section to work from and already leaves a lot of creativity up to me on what comes next. I only knew that I wanted to use a darker palette to continue what seems to be the progression from bottom to top of a white to black gradient. After a bit of talking with my chat, we narrowed it down to Gothic or Steampunk, eventually settling on doing a hybrid style of the two. So I started designing a couple of simple towers and creating a grey to black block palette to gradient up the tower. Just watch your Mumbo vid, thanks algorithm, love that. You're profoundly charismatic to say nothing I've had. And tall, and this is why. Yes, I am very tall, that is me. I am 6'7", yes, very me, very tall, yes, very much yes. Me when I lie. I am so bad at Among Us. With all of my builds, I want to push myself to create something unique and interesting, and after some consideration, the way I decided to push myself in this build was to add an element of implied motion, which I'm making sound much fancier than it is because I want you all to think that I'm really smart. Did you hear 2 new hermits are coming in Season 10? I didn't, actually. Oh, that's interesting. Is it me? Am I one of them? Basically, I want this to look like there's something actively happening if you were to look at a photo of it. I started off designing a diagonal tower, but after taking a step back and looking at it, I thought that I could take advantage of the little space there was on top of the rocks, and tell a good story that way. So with the diagonal building, I decided to make it look as if it has been crumbling off the side of the rock. I wanted to show that it's not just set to fall though, adding in copper belts as an initial peek at the steampunk style holding the tower's base in place. Unfortunately, this would come with its own consequences and has caused strain on the rocks, causing cracks to form. Wait, hold on, let me just do this smartly though. Smartly? That's the word. That's the right word, yeah, of course it is. Apparently, I didn't think this was enough though, so I added a second tower section to the diagonal tower, a little further away from the other section as if it had cracked and was in the process of falling off, almost like it's any Twitch streamer taking a day off. I rounded off the first day by asking my chat for suggestions that I put on a few signs on my prep platform. If you want to be involved in these kinds of builds and projects, feel free to leave a comment, or join me live on Twitch and YouTube every day where I play a variety of different Minecraft content, from hardcore to Vault Hunters to playing in different events. I wanted to plan things out a bit more instead of taking things as they come, and so I made some plans for what I wanted to accomplish for the build. If you want to see the full session, I'm uploading it as its own video that you can find the link for in the description. I really do just like that I just threw a tree in here. I don't, you know, it's just a floating rock right now, so To start off the next day of building, I wanted to add foundations, since the towers on their own looked a little bit weird. I made a trim of polished basalt and used various blocks I hadn't used before in the build to make a gradient for it. I started on a third tower on the leftmost rock and added in a foundation for that as well, making use of the small amount on top to make an extended foundation transitioning into the rock. I added another copper belt and started on a bridge which I had designed earlier that day, with a non-functional gear as a support. Prepare your ears, chat. Look it! Have you seen the wording? Yeah, and its eyes are like a big, dark triangle, isn't it? Triangle. Triangle. Because I want you all to think that I'm really smart. I then started work on the roof section of the falling tower, making the shape of the roof and then adding a red gradient that I had come up with earlier that day. I quickly decided that the gradient looked a little bit off, so I inverted it before using glass panes above the roof, looking like speed lines to add the motion of the collapsing building. I then made designs for the next 2 roofs using the same palettes and added in red sandstone as well. Something about Gothic architecture that I found while doing research for the build is that everything is very detailed, and I'm trying to make sure that I have as much detail as I can while also being fun and whimsical with the steampunk ideas I have as well. Yeah, okay. No! Stop it! I added in a couple of windows either side of the roof and started working on gears in the middle of the copper belts, almost as if the belts are industrial tools that can be tightened or loosened as needed for the protection of the buildings. Next, I finally started work on the gargoyle that I had the idea for on this small rock. I started off by trying a smaller one that would sit on top of this new foundation, but after making a slight abomination in the form of what I can only describe as a faceless pug, I wanted to try something else. Since it wasn't working out, I decided to take a more creative approach to the idea. Using diamond blocks, I made a rough shape to show my chat what I had in mind, which was a gargoyle hanging off the side of the small rock and using its foot to have a grip on it as well. After playing around with some sculpting tools, I finally found a closeness to the scale I wanted, and started working on the head shape and face, which now looking at it looks a bit like a bat. I realised I didn't like the body I had made it, so I detached the head and started sculpting a claw to hold on to the foundation, and started extending out from there until I had possibly the least intimidating Batman on Earth. Sometimes you just have to trust the process though. And I did some refining to the gargoyle, which my chat decided to call Greg Goyle. Smart, I know. Until I was happy enough with the shape and the limbs, and I started sculpting wings for Greg, adding in black stone in the gaps and eventually using a gradient of greyish blocks to have a depth to the wings that he didn't have with just the black stone. And I think for my first ever statue, that I've done pretty well. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Do I need to make eyebrows? Actually, I maybe do. Business! The final part of this build for me was all about adding in details and connecting the build to make sure that everything worked together. After playing around with adding gears to Greg's wings and deciding it looked a bit too goofy, I detailed the towers, adding in windows and outcrops, and more foundational structures at the bottom in the form of red sandstone and acacia walls and fences. I made a path of rocks from the second castle up to the new additions, in the same style as Grian had already done, adding in lighting that also progressed through the eras from torches on sticks to something much more advanced. Lanterns on sticks. Finally, I added in some decorative gears to each of the foundations, and just like that, we're done. After I think about 10 hours of building, we have a finished addition to Grians Megabase. Leave a comment for whose base I should add to or finish next, or if you'd like to see my own building as well. If you like this video, click on this one too, since YouTube thinks you'll like it as well.